Hey guys, so today's video is going to be about the Deadeye Ascendancy. Yes, the Deadeye Ascendancy that everybody says is going to be the best Ascendancy in the upcoming league. I want to talk about what makes it good and potentially some misunderstandings that people have about this Ascendancy that may not make it as good as people think. So let's dive right in. So in front of us, we have all of the Ascendancy nodes, and I have circled the ones that I think are good. And something you might notice is that every single one of these is circled because I think that every single one of these nodes has some merit to it, and there is a reason to take it for certain builds. And some builds, maybe you don't take this one over another. It's just all about choice. But every single node in this Ascendancy is really good, which is one of the reasons why Deadeye is so good and is pretty much just going to be the popular class across at least the foreseeable future of the game, unless they change something fundamentally about it. So looking at what we have in front of us, we have some newer nodes and we have some nodes that didn't really get changed. Now, you can pretty easily see which ones are the new ones because I don't have the actual image for it, though projectile proximity, I did make my own because it was hard to do with the existing image, I guess. So this one's not really new. I just re-edited it. But we can see that there are 3 new nodes: Bullseye, Called Shots, and Avidity. But before we get into the specifics of those nodes, I want to talk about why people typically picked Deadeye in the past. So first things first, people pick Deadeye because of mainly this right here, Gathering Winds. You gain Tailwind on skill use. Tailwind is extremely powerful, increasing your movement speed, skill speed, and also your evasion, which is extremely powerful for a class like Deadeye. And Wind Ward allows you to take a squishy evasion build and make it a little bit more tanky. And with Deflect being a thing in this league, you're getting the mitigation from Tailwind on top of getting the mitigation from Deflect, which is actually going to make you extremely tanky as an evasion character. So that is one of the main reasons why people have picked Deadeye in the past. Now, last season specifically, everybody picked up Deadeye because of this node right here, Thrilling Chase, which allow you to consume frenzy charges as though consuming twice of them at a time. So whenever you used a move that consumed a frenzy charge, it would count as using 2. If you had 2 frenzy charges, count as 4, 3 frenzy charges count as 6, and so on and so forth, up to, I think, 7 was the maximum to consume, pretty much count as consuming 14. So that combined with this one, Avidity, which did get nerfed this season, were the reasons why you picked Deadeye last season. So in essence, they didn't really change that much about what made Deadeye good last season. They did give it a slight nerf over here with Avidity, but I really don't think that that really made too much of a difference. It made things a little bit more consistent while mapping, but other than that, it was pretty much, I guess, not that important that it was there. If you took out Avidity and only had Thrilling Chase, I do think that Deadeye would still have been as popular as it was last league, and also pretty much just as strong as well. And then lastly, from the nodes that didn't change, we had Projectile Proximity Specialization and Endless Munitions. I think these two are probably the weakest out of all the nodes that we have on this tree right now, but I can definitely potentially see some builds maybe not using the Frenzy Charge stuff and going Projectile Proximity and Endless Munitions as their last Ascendancy nodes to give them this extra oomph of an extra projectile and just a little bit of extra damage. Now, these ones are strong, and I think a lot of people took this season 1 because the Thrilling Chase was pretty useless. Also, this Bullseye and Called Shot one were different and also useless. But regardless, Endless Munitions and Projectile Proximity are very powerful nodes as well, especially when you're thinking about things like bow builds that are really valuing additional projectiles. Now, with that, I also wanted to take a look at the new skills because I think this is what changes Deadeye from being probably the most popular class or like one of the strongest class to potentially the strongest Ascendancy in this league. So first off, we have Called Shots, and second off, we have Bullseye. Before we go into Called Shots, I'm going to go talk about Bullseye because I think Called Shots, it is the target of a lot of misunderstanding. So Bullseye allows it so that you apply 10 stacks of critical weakness to enemies when you consume a mark on them. That is extremely powerful because they have nerfed our main form of getting critical weakness, which is Effigy of Cruelty, I believe is the item was called. Whenever you hit an enemy with a spell, it would apply stacks of critical weakness to them. That was our main way of getting critical weakness last league, and this league they nerfed it so it's not as good, and this basically gives you that for free. So when you apply a mark to an enemy, you consume it. That gives you a ton of free crit chance and base crit chance at that. So it makes it super easy to meet crit cap requirements for your attacks. And for one-shotting abilities and one-shotting builds, hitting crit cap is extremely important. That way you can have a consistent one-shot on those bosses that you're trying to face. Now that synergizes very, very well with called shots, which causes your projectiles to chain to marked enemies and grants the called shots meta skill that repeatedly marks enemies near you, bypassing your mark limit. So this is a very powerful synergy with Bullseye, and I expect most people to be using this with Sniper's Mark in a 1v1 situation. That way you're always getting critical weakness on the boss, but also benefiting from the Sniper's Mark increased critical damage on the enemy. This is going to be the main bread and butter, and I would expect most people to be taking Bullseye and called shots on their Deadeye. But I also think that this is probably going to be where most people misunderstand the power level of Deadeye. I think that a lot of people think that this called shots node is going to be extremely powerful for mob clear. So not just single target, but they think like putting Voltaic Mark or Freezing Mark is going to be something that's going to act a lot like last season with the cast on freeze, cast on crit, Voltaic Mark, and Herald of Thunder. Like people are saying like, oh, this is the only way for you to make that work now, since you can't put the marks on cast on X skills. This basically replaces that and makes it so that Deadeye is super powerful. But unfortunately, I actually don't think that's the case. And I really do think called shots is going to be a single target ability only. It's only going to help you with single target. Now, let me explain this with a diagram. So let's say this is your character, right? We're going to draw your character right here. This is your Deadeye. Well, normally how Path of Exile works is that your character's right here, and you're going to have like a bunch of mobs right in front of you, right? You're going to have groups, mob packs in front of you, and you're going to shoot and kill those mob packs. And then further out, there's probably going to be mob packs kind of like scattered around, like maybe there's one right here, maybe one right here kind of approaching you. So you're going to have usually running into like a mob pack, and there's going to be other mob packs around you. Well, in this season, one of the most powerful things about the Voltaic Mark kind of chain a lot of times was that you can shoot an attack at this pack right here, and it would explode this entire pack, but also the Herald chains would hit these mobs and these mobs as well, basically exploding the entire screen, right? So that was really, really good. Now, with the new called shots meta skill, I would not expect it to work like Blasphemy for one, right? I think maybe some people think it's going to work like Blasphemy, where everybody here is going to have a mark on them. But I would expect it to be placing a mark on an enemy, maybe at most one enemy every second. If that's the case, then let's say you put a mark right here, right? Let's say this is a Voltaic Mark. You're going to put a mark on that enemy. Well, if you're, let's say, using a lightning arrow build, or maybe like a lightning spear build from last season, you're going to go shoot the lightning arrow at this group of enemies. It's going to explode this entire group of enemies. And what's going to happen? That Voltaic Mark is going to burst and hit maybe like this AoE right here. And in reality, that doesn't really change from last season at all. Let's just say you don't even have any marks. Well, you shoot a volley of lightning arrow, it's still going to basically blow up this entire mob anyways, and the mobs behind it aren't going to get affected. So that's one of the reasons why I don't think that the called shots meta skill is going to be that strong for clear, because unless it's going to have a huge area effect, right? Let's just say like maybe it's the area of effect is going to be like this, right? Screen wide, which is definitely not going to happen. It's really only going to apply a mark on like one of the closest enemies near you. And in that case, you're going to blow that up anyway. So the Voltaic Mark or Freezing Mark really isn't doing that much more legwork. It's really pretty much the same as before. The other thing to consider is, let's say you have mobs that are, closer to you, behind you. Maybe it's like the mob pack, instead of just being like this, maybe it's like a huge pack and it's kind of like this, right? There's a lot of mobs around you and you're facing this way. Well, if you're applying only one mark, that mark might get applied here or something like that. And in that case, then shooting in this direction, sure, that'll be really great because it chains down this way because you have the ability to chain to marks. So this will explode this pack and potentially also explode this pack right here. But you don't know if it's going to get applied down here, right? It's random. Sometimes it might get applied here and you're facing this direction and you're not going to stop to be like, where is the mark applied, and shoot in that direction. So in that case, you're going to shoot this direction and it's still just going to blow up this pack, and this pack back here is just going to stay where it is. So in that essence, I really don't think that random mark ability is going to be that powerful. There's a reason why you've never really manually casted these marks in the past, because it really just didn't help you with the clear. The only reason why the marks themselves became good last season is because of the fact that you could chain Voltaic Mark with Herald of Lightning to do a screen-wide clear. Now, the one thing that it will be useful for is for Frenzy Charge generation. So that way you can automate your Sniper's Mark and make it so that you're generating Frenzy Charges to go out throughout the game. That's why Lightning Spear last league used a cast on crit mark tech, because that way you didn't have to put a frenzy mark or a sniper's mark on the enemy manually every single time you wanted to use lightning spear. But the one thing to note is lightning spear got majorly nerfed this league and it no longer uses frenzy charges. So if we think about the grand scheme of things and what skills actually use frenzy charges that we're actively using, it really isn't that much. So we have Glacial Lance, which, again, the only reason why this could have even cleared maps was because of the fact that we had the Voltaic Mark tech. So I don't expect this to be a mapping ability. You could definitely use it for bossing next league, still one-shotting, but not for mapping. Spiral Volley, most people with Spiral Volley builds did not use Sniper's Mark because you were able to generate Frenzy Charges other ways. Sniper Mark will only generate you one Frenzy Charge, and again, if you're applying one Sniper's Mark every second, that's not enough to keep Spiral Volley going, so that's not really going to be an option either. Explosive Sphere, nobody uses that, let's be real. And then you have Whirlwind Lance, nobody really used that. Wind Serpent's Fury, majorly nerfed. People aren't probably going to use that, but that's also single target again. So Storm Lance, again, single target. So really, the only real use for Sniper's Mark and Frenzy Charges in a mapping situation is probably Charge Infusion, which nobody really used last league either. So if you think about it that way, if Voltaic Mark and Freezing Mark aren't going to be good in mapping, and if you're not really using Sniper's Mark anymore while mapping either, also Barrage is another good one. That's single target. So if you're not using either of those for mapping situations, then again, this really just becomes a single target ability. And I mean, I don't want to be like a Debbie Downer or whatever, but a lot of times the Sniper's Mark is only applied once when you're killing a boss anyways. Unless, again, you're trying to gain frenzy charges, which then, if it's like a second between delay of hitting the boss, you might as well be spamming that on the boss anyways and save a node right here, right? So I really don't think it's going to be actually that powerful. Maybe I'm missing something and I'm not thinking about a synergy that existed in their game or maybe will exist next league, but at the moment, I just don't really see this node being that powerful outside of a one-on-one situation, which again, Bullseye combined with this is really good, but again, it's just more of a convenience thing rather than an actual, this is really, really strong type of situation. But if I'm missing something, let me know down in the comments, right? I definitely don't have oversight over everything. I definitely can't think of everything. You guys, the collective thoughts of you guys definitely can come up with a lot more than I can. But yeah, again, I still think Deadeye is going to be the most powerful Ascendancy this league, but it's definitely not a free win. You're still going to need to have a good character behind it. You're still going to need to have a good build. You're still going to need to have good gear because in most cases, other than projectile proximity, this isn't really giving you that much damage. So Yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Are you convinced from my kind of thoughts about everything around the class, or do you think I'm really missing out and this is just crazy, crazy overpowered? And GGG, what are you guys doing, right? Yeah, let me know that in the comments. But as always, if you enjoyed this type of video, the best way to let me know is by hitting that sub button, and it is completely free and it supports the channel as well. I also stream on twitch.tv/misoxshiru every single night. So I'd love to see you guys there, but you guys can't make it. Don't worry. Hopefully I see y'all on the next video. All right, guys. Peace.